Hey, what's up, everybody? Got another really good one today. Reading the Rocks, the autobiography of the Earth by Marcia Bjornerud. Marcia is an author and a structural geologist. Her specialty is the architecture of mountains. Reading the Rocks is about our planet and the staggering amount of information that we can obtain from the different kinds of rocks if we learn how to read them. And it often comes down to just knowing which rocks to ask. Marcia starts us off with some basic physics and nature of not just Earth, but she uses Mars and Venus for comparison with Earth. We'll learn things like where the moon came from and how the Earth cooled slower than Mars because of Earth's greater surface area to volume ratio, among other reasons, and the wider implications of this fact. She covers all kinds of physical traits like mountain formation and erosion, and why Mars was able to raise mountains much larger than any on Earth. She goes into rock classification with some nice sections on each of the three main types, the igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. She covers the uses and limitations of radiometric dating, and we learn about the Earth's interconvection currents, seafloor spreading, and continental drift. There's a lot in here on the formation of granite and basalt and oceanic versus continental crusts. But the most fascinating part to me was how the concept of fractal scaling comes up. And then we see how this occurs in nature and not just geographically, with an example of scaling ratio of earthquake magnitudes to earthquake occurrences, but it can be applied in looking at populations, and it's from here that the book takes a turn into much deeper territory. What I mean by the fractal scaling of earthquakes is that in a given time period, if we see, say, 1 magnitude 8 earthquake, we would expect to see 10 magnitude 7 earthquakes in that same period, 100 magnitude 6 earthquakes, 1,000 magnitude 5 earthquakes, and so on. But does this fractal scaling really apply in biology? We look at the distribution of biomass across the animal kingdom in relation to the population's numbers in the natural wild, and natural is the key here. There are fewer giant animals than moderately sized animals, and more smaller animals than moderately sized animals. Generally speaking, we start to see greater populations as the animal size decreases. The Earth sustains more insects than mammals, but more microbes than insects. The idea is that, generally speaking, this balance is achieved in nature, but what happens when the balance is severely skewed somewhere, as is happening with the Homo sapiens with our exponential population growth over the years? In Earth's history, these imbalances tend to coincide with great dying events, whether due to catastrophes or more agent driven causes. Which one is the cause and which one is the effect is unclear, but these things tend to end up balancing out again in the end. It's scary to think what this could mean for human populations, because from here the book touches on environmental damage that humans cause, and many of these science books tend to do this. Reading the Rocks is in many ways pretty similar to the other geology books we've reviewed. It's a nice broad scope of geological lessons, most of which are fairly basic, but this book stands out on its own. It's really well written. Not that the other ones weren't, they're all really good, but Reading the Rocks has a more academic feel and style than some of the other geology books we've looked at. And this book explores territories I never would have known about, and it was a pretty enriching experience for the mind. Another area that stood out was the portion on the Cambrian Explosion, when we really start to see complexification and the inception of predation and arms races and symbiotic relationships or partnerships of life on Earth. It was great. You just get so much with this book. Also, with this book, when things get complicated, the author is very good at using metaphor to help convey the concepts. And there's a glossary, which I love. And this book uses the format that I really love for nonfiction. It's just like what you get with those Jared Diamond books. It's split into chapters, and each chapter is clearly chunked up into subsections that are listed in the contents. I don't know why more nonfiction books don't do this, but Reading the Rocks does. Okay, so now that I've told you how much I love this book, I have a confession, guys. I actually picked this book up like a month ago, and after about 80 pages, I shelved it in favor of one of the other geology books that we reviewed recently. And the reason for that is that I was having a hard time with some of the material. It's not the easiest book, but the second time through it was nothing like that. I'm not sure why I had trouble the first time, but I'm glad I read the book. You just want to make sure that you're fully alert and paying attention when you're reading this book. And Marcia does have some other books too that I will be looking into. Besides being a geology book, Reading the Rocks really does a nice job capturing the wonder of life, as well as the heart and wisdom of the author. It's not just geology, it's the autobiography of Earth as told by the rocks for humanity. It's about recognizing natural cycles on the Earth and humanity and our place as it relates to the cyclical nature of the planet. Okay, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any interest at all in geology or life or Earth history, check out Reading the Rocks by Marcia Bjornerud.